The night I met him, the sky wasn't supposed to bleed, but that's what it looked like, bleeding. A long red tear cutting across the black silence above the Nevada desert. I was parked alone, far beyond the last gas station, camera mounted on the hood, chasing meteor footage for a low-budget documentary no one would ever watch. I thought it was just another satellite burning up. Until it changed direction. Until it stopped mid-air. And then fell straight down, like it chose to. My name is Aaron Holt, 39 years old, former photojournalist, burnout survivor, divorcee. I came out here to film the night sky because I was tired of filming people destroying each other. The desert was supposed to be quiet. It wasn't. When the object hit, there was no explosion, no fireball, just a low, mechanical hum that seemed to vibrate through my chest. I grabbed my flashlight, left the car running, and started walking toward the sound. The sand was warm under my boots. My pulse was louder than the wind. And then I saw it, half buried in a shallow crater about 50 meters away. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a van, smooth, metallic, almost liquid in shape. But what made my stomach drop was the movement inside, something shifting, struggling. Human instinct said run, curiosity said document. I raised my camera, hit record. That's when it happened. A sudden flash, blue-white, like lightning from nowhere. My camera died instantly. My flashlight flickered. The next sound wasn't from the object, it was from behind me. A groan. Weak, shallow. I turned. And there he was. At first I thought it was a man in a pressure suit. Then the light steadied, and I realized it wasn't a suit, it was skin. Thin, pale, with faint veins of silver pulsing underneath. His head was too large. His eyes, black, deep, reflective, like 2 drops of oil. He fell to his knees, trembling. I froze. He looked at me, and even without words, I understood. Help me. My breath caught. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the low chop of helicopters, not one, several. The sound was still faint, but getting closer. That was the moment everything inside me split in two. The rational part screamed, "Leave it! Walk away!" The other part, the part that used to believe stories could matter, said, "If you walk away, you'll never forgive yourself." He was struggling to stand, one hand pressed against his side. A faint blue light flickered between his fingers. I dropped to one knee. "Can you hear me? Are you hurt?" He blinked. Not confusion, understanding. Then a faint voice, not through his mouth, through my head. "Hide!" My stomach clenched. I looked at the horizon, 2 dots of light, helicopters, definitely military, sweeping the desert. My brain moved faster than my fear. I grabbed his arm, thin, surprisingly cold, and half dragged, half carried him back toward my jeep. He stumbled, but followed. His breathing was uneven, mechanical almost, like a broken ventilator. We reached the car just as the first helicopter passed overhead. I killed the headlights and threw a tarp over him in the back seat. The beam of light swept over us once, then again, and then moved on. I waited 30 seconds, maybe less, before turning the key. The engine coughed, then caught. I drove. No headlights, no GPS, just instinct and adrenaline. After 20 minutes of rough terrain, I reached my cabin, an old mining shack 20 miles from town, my so-called sanctuary from the world. I pulled the jeep behind it, killed the engine, and sat there breathing hard. Then I looked at the tarp. It was moving. I opened the back door slowly. He was sitting up now, hands trembling, eyes scanning the cabin like an animal assessing a cage. I whispered, "You're safe here, for now." He tilted his head as if processing the word safe. Then he said out loud this time, voice thin but clear, "Not safe, for you." Before I could respond, he collapsed. Instinct took over. I carried him inside, laid him on the floor beside the old furnace, and grabbed my emergency kit. No idea what I was doing, no idea what I was treating, but blood, if that's what the glowing fluid was leaking from a wound on his side. I pressed a towel to it. It hissed, burned through the fabric. I jumped back, heart pounding. The helicopters passed again, farther now. I looked at him, barely breathing, and realized, whatever he was dying. And for some reason, I couldn't let that happen, so I did the only thing I could. I stayed, I hid him for 3 days. And in those 3 days, he told me the truth. Not the kind you find in conspiracy forums or government files, the kind that changes how you see yourself, your world, and the entire idea of what it means to be human. But before all that, that first night, as I sat beside him listening to machines search the desert for something they'd never admit existed, I had one thought that refused to leave me. What if the reason they don't contact us isn't about fear of us hurting them? What if it's about us being afraid to face ourselves? I didn't know then how close that thought was to the truth, but I would. Very soon. He didn't move for almost an hour. I kept checking his pulse, if you could call it that. It wasn't steady, it wasn't human. Every few seconds I'd feel a faint vibration through his skin, like a low current running beneath the surface. I didn't know if he was breathing or charging. My mind raced through every alien movie I'd ever seen, none of which offered a useful guide for what to do when one collapses on your cabin floor. I turned off every light, covered the windows, and sat by him in the dark with only the red glow of my camera charger lighting the room. Around midnight, he stirred. His eyes opened, no pupils, no whites, just endless black that caught the reflection of the red light like liquid mirrors. He looked at me for a long time, then spoke, not with his mouth, but straight into my thoughts again. "They are near." I froze. "Who?" "Those who shot me down." I went to the window, careful not to touch the blinds. In the distance, faint beams of light swept the hills, helicopters still searching. "How did you know they were looking for you?" I whispered. "I can hear their signals." "Radio. Not radio, mines." The phrase sent a chill down my spine. I turned to face him. "Can you read mine?" "Only what you shout inside." "Then stop listening." He gave what might have been a smile, barely a twitch in the corners of his mouth, but unmistakably human. "You are loud, Aaron." Hearing my name in my head felt like someone touching a locked door from the other side. "How do you know my name?" "You thought it." I rubbed my temples, trying to steady the panic. "Okay, fine. You can hear thoughts. Great. Now tell me why the hell you crashed into my night." He looked at me, then at his wound. It was glowing less now. "I did not crash. I was brought down. There is difference." "Brought down by who? The military?" "By your fear." I stared at him. "You mean people shot you down because they were afraid?" "Not people. Fear itself. It controls them." His sentences came clipped, like someone assembling words from a dictionary. "You're not making sense." "I will, when I have strength." He looked around the room, gaze stopping on the old kettle. "Water." I poured some into a metal cup and handed it to him. He drank slowly, awkwardly, as if relearning the motion. Then he set it down and looked at me again. "You hide me?" "For now," I said. "But you need to explain what's happening." He nodded slightly. 3 cycles. And then I leave. Then you will know. 3 days? Yes. And if they find you before then none of this matters. I sat down opposite him. "You said they're near. Are we safe?" "For now." They do not expect humans to protect what they fear. I leaned back, processing that. You said fear controls them. What does that even mean? He looked at me for a long time before answering. It means your kind built walls around truth, then forgot why. My instinct was to laugh. You sound like a philosopher. We all were once. His tone, if thoughts can have tones, carried something like sadness. My kind believed you were ready. We came to listen, to observe. But your leaders saw threat, not invitation. That's what everyone says in UFO forums, I muttered. Governments shoot first. It is not governments, it is everyone. That stopped me. What do you mean, everyone? You believe lies because lies are comfortable. You build your reality from what hurts least. I stopped, realizing I'd done exactly that with my own life. My marriage, my job, the things I told myself to keep functioning. So you came to teach us truth? I asked. No, we came to see if you wanted it. I frowned. And do we? Some, not many. He looked at the window again, where light still flickered faintly through the cracks. They will leave soon, then we rest. Rest? You mean sleep? Something like that. I need darkness, stillness. Do not be afraid if I seem gone. Gone how? You will know. And then, without warning, his body began to dim. The faint veins of silver beneath his skin pulsed once, twice, then faded entirely. His eyes closed. He went completely still. I touched his wrist. Cold, no pulse, no vibration, just silence. Hey, I whispered. Nothing. Don't do that. I shook him gently. You said 3 days. Don't die on me, night one. Still nothing. Outside, the helicopters moved farther away, their lights dissolving into distance. I sat there in the dark beside a lifeless alien, trying to decide if I'd just lost my mind. But then something strange happened. The old radio on the counter, one I hadn't used in months, crackled to life. Static. Then faintly, a voice. Not English, not any language I recognized. It sounded layered, like multiple people whispering at once. Then it stopped. The air felt heavier, thicker, charged. I looked back at him and saw faint blue light reappear around his head, like a halo of static electricity. The room smelled faintly of ozone, and then I heard it. Not a word, not a thought. A feeling. Trust me. It wasn't loud, it wasn't commanding, just gentle, insistent. So I did. I sat there beside him, watching that faint light pulse like a heartbeat, and realized something terrifyingly simple. I was now part of a secret no human should carry alone. And for reasons I didn't yet understand, I was willing to carry it anyway. 3 days, he'd said. 3 days until I'd know why they don't contact us. At the time, I thought that meant answers about aliens. I didn't know he was talking about us, about what we've become, about the walls we build not to keep them out, but to keep ourselves in. When I woke up, sunlight was bleeding through the curtains. For a second, I thought the night before had been a hallucination brought on by isolation and too much caffeine. Then I turned, and there he was, sitting upright against the wall. His eyes were open, calm, watching me like he had never left. "You're alive," I said, instantly regretting the obviousness of it. I do not die so easily. His voice filled my head again, quiet, steady. "Your world is bright. It burns." "That's morning," I said, pouring coffee for myself. "You'll get used to it." "I cannot stay long enough to get used to anything." 3 days, right? He nodded once, slow and deliberate. I sat at the table, trying to act normal, but nothing about this was normal. I was sharing air with a being from another world. "You got a name?" I asked finally. He tilted his head, considering. You can call me Kale. Kale, I repeated. All right. Why me? Why crash, or whatever that was, near my car, in the middle of nowhere? I didn't choose you. You chose me. I did? You didn't run. I sipped my coffee. Not running doesn't make me chosen. It makes you curious. That is enough. He looked out the window, his gaze unfocused, like he was listening to something miles away. They have stopped searching for now. They believe I am gone. Gone, as in dead? Gone, as in not worth more risk? I frowned. What did they risk? Exposure. Truth. Your species fears those more than death. I leaned back, trying to process his words. You keep saying we fear truth. What truth? He looked at me then, his eyes impossibly black, but somehow full of depth. That you are not alone, and that you are not ready to stop pretending you are. We've been pretending for centuries, I said. It's survival. Keeps us sane. No, it keeps you asleep. The way he said it felt final, not judgmental, just factual. I tried to laugh, but it came out nervous. You talk like a therapist. We are observers. We see patterns. Yours are repeating patterns. Civilizations before you, same origin, same path, same fall. I put down my cup. You're saying you've seen other species destroy themselves? Yes. And many thought they were unique until the silence consumed them. I rubbed my forehead, the caffeine doing nothing to clear the fog. And you think we're next? You are at the edge. You believe technology is evolution. It is not. It is distraction. That's easy for someone with telepathy and a self-healing spaceship to say. For the first time, I thought I felt amusement from him, like a ripple of warmth in my thoughts. We had our distractions too, until we almost ended ourselves. Only then did we learn. Learn what? That survival requires truth. And truth requires pain. I stared at him. You mean like suffering? Suffering that awakens. Pain that clears illusions. You avoid it. You medicate it. You entertain it away. You call it progress. So what? You want us to just suffer until we wake up? I want you to stop running from it. Pain is a teacher. You silence it, then wonder why you learn nothing. His words hit somewhere deeper than logic. Maybe because I'd been running from my own pain for years. Divorce, career collapse, the quiet ache of realizing I wasn't who I thought I'd be by 40. I looked at him again. If your people learned that lesson, why not teach us? We tried many times. When? Before your history began and during it. You called us gods, then demons, then myths. Each time you built religions instead of understanding. My throat tightened. And now? Now you have governments instead of temples, the same worship, different gods, technology, money, identity. You sound disappointed. No, observant. He stood, if you could call it, standing. His movement was fluid, silent, not like walking, but gliding. He stopped near the small bookshelf by the window and ran his hand along the spines of old books. Orwell, Sagan, Huxley. Some of you try to see, but seeing alone changes nothing. What does? Choosing differently, acting differently, that is what contact requires. I stood too, feeling suddenly defensive. So you're saying the reason you don't contact us is because we're not mature enough? Not because you are immature, because you are dishonest with yourselves. I laughed quietly. That's the most accurate thing anyone's ever said about humans. He turned, his expression unreadable. You find humor in your own destruction. Interesting. It's how we cope, I said. If we didn't laugh, we'd go insane. Maybe insanity is what you need to see the cracks in your walls. Outside, a dust storm was rolling in, orange sky, wind carrying the smell of iron and heat. He watched it like someone seeing weather for the first time. 3 days, he said again, quietly. You keep saying that, I replied. What happens at the end? You will understand why we stopped speaking to your world, why we watch in silence. I hesitated. You mean you've been watching us? For how long? Since before your kind called yourselves human. And you never intervened? You would not have survived intervention. You must awaken yourselves. I felt something heavy in his tone, not arrogance, but regret. What if we don't? I asked. Then you will end, and we will remember you. The wind slammed against the windows, a low howl filling the cabin. He didn't flinch, just stood there, perfectly still, like a monument of calm in the chaos. Do not fear the storm, he said. Easy for you to say. No, not easy, necessary. And as lightning flashed over the desert, illuminating his silhouette against the trembling window, I realized I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I was afraid of what he was showing me, the mirror, the one we've all been avoiding. That night, the storm didn't stop. The desert wind screamed against the windows, shaking the thin glass like a warning. The power went out around midnight, and the cabin sank into darkness, except for the faint blue shimmer that radiated from Kyle's skin. I sat across from him, listening to the storm and the low hum that seemed to come from his body. He was motionless, eyes half closed, but I could feel him awake somewhere deeper, thinking, listening. Finally I said, You said your kind nearly destroyed yourselves. How? He didn't answer at first. The hum in the room grew louder, until it felt like the air itself was breathing. Then his voice appeared inside my head again, calm, heavy. We forgot what we were. We built machines that thought for us, weapons that decided who lived, networks that told us what to feel. We called it progress. It was surrender. I leaned forward. That sounds familiar. Yes. You are following the same map, faster. So you're saying we'll end the same way? If nothing interrupts the pattern, but there is still choice. He opened his eyes then, and for a moment I saw not just reflection, but whole landscapes moving within them, oceans of light, cities of sound. We learned at the edge of extinction that truth is not information. It is alignment. When enough of us remembered that, the machines became tools again, not masters. I rubbed my arms, goosebumps prickling. We're nowhere near that. We still argue about whether truth even exists. That is why we watch, because a few among you are starting to remember. Remember what? Connection. The word echoed in my skull. You separate everything, mind from body, human from nature, belief from science, nations from nations. You build walls, name them progress, and wonder why you feel alone. So connection is the key? It is the beginning. Lightning flashed again, and I saw his face clearly for the first time. It wasn't monstrous. Oh, it was ancient, gentle even. Why tell me this? I asked. Why me? Because you still listen. Most hear only noise. I laughed under my breath. You think I listen? I'm a man who ran away from the world. That's not listening. That's hiding. Hiding is listening turned inward. Sometimes that is how awakening starts. His words hit something tender. I looked at the floor. I didn't come out here to awaken. I came here to disappear. Yet here you are, keeping a dying stranger alive. You're not dying anymore. Then maybe neither are you. For a long time, we didn't speak. The wind softened. The hum in the walls faded. Then he said something that made my skin tighten. When we first reached your planet openly, you destroyed us. I looked up sharply. When was that? Before you had writing, before your memory began? We came to share knowledge, and you worshipped some, hunted others. Fear rewrote the story into myth. We learned to appear only in fragments, dreams, visions, inspiration. The few who saw were called mad or divine. So you've been guiding us? Guiding is too strong, whispering perhaps, hoping you would recognize the voice as your own. And did we? Sometimes. Then you forgot again. I poured myself a little whiskey, the burn grounding me. You make it sound like we're children. You are children, but children with fire. I smirked. And you're what, our parents? No, just neighbors who remember burning down their own house once. The wind finally died, leaving only the ticking of the clock on the wall. It sounded louder than usual, like each second was a heartbeat. You said connection is the beginning. What's the end? Union. With each other, with everything, but you fear that most of all. You call it loss of self. Wouldn't it be? No, it is expansion, but to expand one must first stop clinging to the fragments. You mean ego, I said. You mean survival, he corrected. Ego is the armor of those who believe they are separate. It keeps you safe and small. I stared into my empty glass. If we ever did learn this, if we evolved, would you come back? He looked at me like he was weighing 1,000 possibilities. We never left, we just stopped knocking. The clock ticked louder. Something in his words lodged deep, a splinter of realization. Maybe the silence we blame on the universe is just the echo of our own refusal to listen. He stood and walked to the door. I followed, uneasy. The air outside was cold and still after the storm. He lifted his hand toward the horizon, where the first light of dawn smeared the sky. Your species sees dawn and thinks new day. We see it as memory. Everything begins again, but only when you stop denying night. That's poetic, I said. Truth always sounds poetic to those who have forgotten it. We stood there until the first rays reached us. He didn't blink. I realized then that he didn't seem to breathe either. The light painted his skin gold for a second, and then he turned back inside. You said I'd understand in 3 days, I reminded him. You will. But understanding is not comfort. It will hurt. I can take it. We will see. He sat again on the floor, closing his eyes. The faint hum returned, softer now, like a sleeping machine. I sat across from him until sleep finally claimed me too. The last thing I remember thinking was that maybe the silence of the universe wasn't a mystery to solve. Maybe it was a mirror waiting for us to look long enough without turning away. I woke up to the smell of metal. Not the rusty, familiar scent of tools, but something electric, sterile, like ozone after lightning. Kyle was standing in the center of the room, surrounded by a faint halo of blue light. His arms were lifted slightly, palms open, and the air around him shimmered. My first instinct was to grab the camera. It had been dead since the night of the crash, but when I turned it on, it powered up instantly, fully charged. "How are you doing that?" I asked. He didn't open his eyes. "Repairing communication." "With who?" "My own. They will find me soon." I swallowed. "And what happens when they do?" "I leave." "And you decide what to do with what you've learned." I stood there, unsure if I should feel relief or dread. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the floorboards. My coffee mug rattled. "You're going to get us both killed if someone sees that light," I hissed. The glow dimmed instantly. Kyle opened his eyes. "I forget how fragile you are." Thanks, I muttered. He lowered his hands, the shimmer vanishing. For a moment I thought I saw the faint outline of a shape behind him, something tall and thin, flickering like heat haze. Then it was gone. You're signaling them already? Not yet. Not until you understand. Understand what? The reason we stopped talking to your kind. I exhaled sharply. You've been teasing that since day one. So tell me. He tilted his head slightly as if listening to the air itself. Then he said, First, tell me why you stopped talking to yours. What? Your people, your world. Why do you live out here alone? I hesitated. Because I got tired of lies. I worked in journalism, wars, disasters, corruption. I wanted truth. But all I found was noise. Everyone twisting everything to fit their side. So you ran? Yeah, I said. I ran. Then you already understand us. What's that supposed to mean? We ran too, from you. The words hit like a punch. You're saying aliens, your kind, gave up on us? Not gave up, stepped back. You mistake silence for absence. I frowned. Why? He walked slowly to the window, watching dust drift in a beam of sunlight. Because when we spoke, you turned us into weapons or gods. When we showed you knowledge, you built hierarchies. When we offered peace, you made religions. Every contact became conquest. I thought of ancient myths, of gods descending from the sky, of stories rewritten over centuries. You're saying all those legends were attempts, conversations that became scriptures, science that became sorcery. Every time we tried to speak, your fear translated it into power. So you stopped trying? Wouldn't you? I didn't answer. He continued, we learn to speak through silence instead, to see who listens without demand. That is why I am here. I laughed under my breath, half disbelief, half surrender. So I'm your experiment? No, you are the answer to your own. You talk in riddles, because truth must be discovered, not given. Given truth is another form of control. I paced the room, trying to piece his meaning together. You're saying the reason you don't contact us is because we don't know how to receive truth without turning it into control. Yes. The simplicity of it chilled me. I thought of every government that censored, every religion that declared exclusivity, every company that monetized knowledge. We don't seek truth, we weaponize it. Kyle watched me silently, letting it sink in. You begin to see, he said finally. So if we stopped doing that, if we actually changed, would you come back? We never left. We just speak in ways you no longer recognize. Like what? Dreams, intuition, the sudden urge to question. That's you. Sometimes it's you remembering us. I sank into the chair. My heart was pounding, not from fear, but from the weight of what he was saying. You make it sound like you're not separate from us. We aren't. Not in the way you think. We are another thread in the same pattern. Then why do you look so different? Because difference is your test. Can you recognize kinship in a form that challenges you? His voice, or thought, carried an almost sorrowful tone. Every time we appear, you fail that test. I couldn't argue. We did fear what didn't look like us. We always had. He turned from the window. You asked why we don't contact you. It's simple. We did. And each time you asked us to save you, but salvation is the only thing we cannot give. Why not? Because it kills the very thing that must awaken. He stepped closer, his gaze steady. We are not here to save you. We are here to remind you that you can save yourselves. I laughed bitterly. That's not what anyone wants to hear. Exactly. That is why we remain silent. His words hung in the air like a sentence. Outside, the sun climbed higher, turning the desert white. "So what happens now?" I asked. "You decide. Whether to keep hiding or to speak. Whether to plant what you have learned or bury it." I rubbed my temples. "No one will believe me." "Belief is not required, only honesty." "About what?" "About fear, about what you deny." He turned back toward the door. "The last day approaches. You will see what denial creates, and then perhaps you will understand." He opened the door and stepped outside into the blinding light. I followed, squinting. The desert stretched endlessly, silent, empty, but the air felt charged, heavy with invisible tension. Kyle lifted his hand toward the horizon again, and for a brief second I saw movement there, shadows in the sunlight, shapes too large, too smooth to be clouds. "What is that?" I whispered. "Memory." And then it was gone. The shapes on the horizon haunted me all day. They had shimmered like heat, vanished like breath on glass, but the feeling they left behind wouldn't fade. Kyle didn't speak again for hours. He sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, body faintly glowing, while I paced the cabin trying to anchor myself to something ordinary. Coffee, radio static, the ticking clock. None of it worked. Around dusk, I finally broke the silence. "Those things I saw this morning, memory, you called them. What does that mean?" He opened his eyes slowly. "Every world keeps its own ghosts. The desert remembers what it has witnessed." "You mean energy?" "I mean choice. Every act leaves an echo." He stood, moving to the window. The sky was bleeding orange, at the same color I'd seen the night of the crash. "Your planet hums with echoes of fear. You built nations from it. You teach children to inherit it. That is why contact fails. Our presence amplifies what is already there. So, when you appear, we just project our own fear onto you. Yes, you do not see us. You see your reflection in a form you cannot accept." I sank into the chair, staring at my hands. "Maybe we can't help it. Fear's built into us." "So is courage," he said. "But courage is a choice, not an instinct." I looked at him. "You talk like someone who's been human." For the first time he smiled, faint but real. "In some ways we have. We began much as you did. Tribes, wars, beliefs, the same hunger to control the unknown, the same terror of looking inward. We almost vanished before we learned that knowing the universe without knowing ourselves was emptiness." "And you think we can learn that too?" "I think you must." Outside, the wind shifted, carrying a smell of rain, even though the sky was dry. He walked to the door and opened it. The air shimmered again, faintly this time, like invisible ripples. I followed him out. "What are you doing?" "Showing you." "Showing me what?" "The consequence of forgetting." The ripples grew stronger until the desert in front of us flickered like a broken screen. For a second I saw other landscapes layered over the sand, forests burning, oceans choked with metal, cities collapsing under light. The visions were silent but overwhelming. I stumbled back, gasping. "What the hell is this?" "Possible futures." "Memories of worlds that chose denial until it was too late. We show them to those who might still listen." "You mean this is what happens if we keep going the way we are?" "Yes, but it is not prophecy. It is inertia. Change the momentum, change the outcome." The images faded, leaving the desert plain again, too still, too quiet. My heart hammered against my ribs. "How do you even know I can do anything about that?" "Because you are already doing it." "You are listening?" I laughed shakily. "One man listening isn't enough. One man listening becomes two. Two become 10, it spreads." That is how every civilization begins to wake. I wiped sweat from my forehead. What if we never wake up? Then you will join the silence. You mean extinction, transformation. Nothing truly ends, but the form can vanish. He turned back toward the cabin. You said you were once a storyteller, he reminded me. A journalist, I corrected. Same thing. You shaped how others saw the world. You stopped because no one wanted truth. Tell it again, even if they still don't. You think a few articles could change humanity? Stories are seeds. You do not know which will grow. His calm was infuriating. You talk like it's simple. It is not simple, it is necessary. He sat down again, his glow dimming. Tomorrow is the last day. After that I go. The words dropped like a stone. You really think they'll come for you? They already are. I listened, but heard nothing. Then faintly a distant rumble, low, rhythmic. Not thunder, engines. Helicopters? I whispered. Not yours, he said. Ours. I ran to the window. The sky was empty. But I felt vibration under my feet, like the ground itself was humming. So that's it? You just leave? Drop a revelation and vanish? I leave the truth behind. Whether you bury it or plant it is your choice. You sound so sure I'll tell someone. You might, or you might not. Both are valid. What matters is that you change. I sat down, hard, staring at the floorboards. Change how? Stop running. Stop blaming the silence for your loneliness. He looked at me, eyes softer now. You think isolation protects you, but it is only another form of denial. You cannot wake alone. I thought of the life I'd left behind, the colleagues I'd cut off, the daughter I hadn't called in months. Guilt swelled like a tide. You think I can just walk back and fix everything? Not fix, begin. And what about you? You fix things too. I observe. That is enough. Outside the horizon pulsed again, faint flashes like heat lightning with no clouds. They're coming, aren't they? Yes, before dawn. And then? Then the choice is yours. He turned away, folding into silence again. I wanted to ask more, but something in his stillness stopped me. I poured another drink, sat beside the window, and watched the desert until the stars came out. Every constellation looked sharper, closer, as if the sky itself were leaning down to listen. Somewhere out there, something vast was waiting for morning. I didn't know if it was salvation or farewell. That night felt different. The air was thick, charged, like the world itself was holding its breath. I couldn't sleep, so I went outside. The desert stretched endlessly in silver moonlight, every rock and dune glowing faintly. It was beautiful, but it felt staged, like reality was bracing for something. Kyle followed me without sound. He moved as if the earth itself carried him. We stood side by side in silence for a long time. Finally, I said, "If they're coming for you, will they see me as a threat?" "They will see you as irrelevant," he replied calmly. "Comforting," I muttered. "You fear death?" "I fear dying for nothing." "Then make your life mean something." Easier said than done. Easier done than believed. I turned to look at him. The moonlight softened his features. In that moment, he didn't look alien. He looked ancient, tired, maybe even sad. "You sound like someone who's seen this before," I said. "I have, many times. You are not the first species to reach this edge." "And how many crossed it?" "Few." "How did they do it?" "By remembering that truth cannot be owned, only shared." I frowned. "We share all the time. Information, stories, ideas. Everything's public now. You share noise, not truth. You exchange distraction and call it connection." His words hit hard. I thought about social feeds, headlines, endless shouting. He wasn't wrong. When truth becomes performance, he continued, understanding dies. That is when civilizations begin to rot. I sighed. So what, we're rotten? You are fermenting. That can create poison or transformation. So which way are we heading? That depends on how many choose awareness before collapse. I sat down on a rock, rubbing my temples. You keep saying choice, like it's simple. Most people don't even think they have one. You all have one. You just gave it away long ago, to comfort, to fear, to those who promise safety. He looked up at the sky, where faint lights were beginning to flicker among the stars. They weren't satellites. They moved too smoothly, too deliberately. That them? I asked quietly. Yes. And you're not afraid? No. Fear is your teacher. I have learned its lessons. What did it teach you? That control is an illusion. Everything you try to hold, you lose. Everything you release returns in another form. I stared at the horizon, where the lights drifted closer. You really think humanity can learn that? You already know it. You just forgot. Children remember for a while, before you teach them to forget. I laughed softly. You sound more human every minute. Or maybe humans sound more like us than you realize. The wind rose slightly, carrying sand that glittered like powdered glass. When they take you, I said, what happens to me? Nothing, unless you choose otherwise. Meaning, you can go back to silence, or you can speak. Both will cost you. I swallowed. You think anyone would believe me? Belief is irrelevant. Seeds don't ask to be believed. They just grow when the soil is ready. And if it's not, then they wait. We stood there again in silence, the hum in the air deepening. The horizon shimmered faintly like a curtain of heat. I felt it in my bones, something vast approaching. Kyle, I said quietly, if you had one thing to tell all of us, one truth we might actually understand, what would it be? He turned to me, eyes glinting with reflections of the stars. You fear that we will judge you. But we never did. We mourned you. My breath caught. Mourned? Because you chose shadows over light and called it safety. Because you built gods out of fear instead of wonder. Because you forgot that creation and destruction are the same energy and you wielded it without wisdom. I didn't know what to say. The sky pulsed again, brighter now. He continued softly. Every time one of you looks at the stars and feels both awe and loneliness, we hear it. It reaches us. We call it the cry of separation. It is the sound of a world remembering what it lost. The words wrapped around me, heavy and beautiful. And what did we lose? Each other. He pointed toward the lights. Tomorrow, when I go, do not look for ships. Look for mirrors. Mirrors. Every human is one. You do not see us because you refuse to see yourselves. I wanted to protest, to ask 1,000 questions, but the hum was growing so loud it felt like the air itself would split. Kyle, I said, if you can hear us, if you've always been listening, why now? Why me? Because you finally stopped shouting. And then he placed his hand on my chest. A shock of warmth rushed through me, not pain, not energy, recognition. For a second I saw everything, earth, stars, oceans, people laughing and fighting, cities glowing like circuits, all of it one pulse, one thought. It was too much. I staggered back. The glow around him was brighter now, almost blinding. What did you do? I gasped. Reminded you. Of what? That you are not small. The sound in the air became a vibration I could feel in my teeth. The sky above us split silently, light folding in on itself. He looked at me one last time. "Tomorrow, you will understand." Then the light vanished, and Kyle was gone. Only the hum remained, fading slowly into the night. I stood alone in the desert, unable to tell whether I'd just lost my mind or witnessed the beginning of something the world had forgotten existed. Dawn came grey and silent. The world felt hollow, like sound itself had taken a step back to watch what would happen next. The cabin looked the same. Coffee cup, tools, dust. But it wasn't. Nothing was. The air still carried that faint, metallic tang Kyle left behind, as if reality hadn't fully closed after he vanished. I wandered outside barefoot, scanning the horizon for any sign of him or of the lights I'd seen in the sky. Nothing, just the wind and the hiss of sand shifting underfoot. For the first time, I wondered if he'd ever been real. Maybe exhaustion, isolation, guilt had finally cracked my mind open wide enough to let my imagination leak through. Then I saw it, etched faintly into the ground near the edge of the dune. A pattern. Not drawn, not burned, imprinted like pressure from something beyond light. Circles within circles, intersecting lines forming what looked like a map or maybe a code. I knelt, tracing the grooves with my fingers. They pulsed faintly, almost alive. "Kyle?" I said aloud before realizing how insane that sounded. The wind carried the name away. I took out my camera. The battery was full again, though I hadn't charged it. I snapped a photo, but when I looked at the screen, the image flickered, glitched, then reset. Blank. Whatever it was, it didn't want to be recorded. I turned back toward the cabin, and that's when I heard it. His voice, faint, not from outside but inside my head. "Remember," I froze. "Kyle? You are not hearing me."
You are hearing yourself. What does that mean? It means the connection remains. 3 days were enough. I closed my eyes, the wind pressing against my face. Where are you? Home, watching, waiting. So that's it? You leave, drop riddles, and disappear into the stars? I left the answer behind. You carry it. I don't understand. You will. Look around you. I opened my eyes. The desert looked the same, but the longer I stared, the more I saw faint outlines flickering in the air, like invisible architecture. Structures made of light and memory, overlapping reality. Cities that weren't there, yet somehow were. I blinked hard, and they vanished. You're showing me something. You are showing yourself. We only open the door. You must walk through. And what's on the other side? Responsibility? The word echoed like thunder.
For what? For everything you see and deny, for every truth you bury beneath fear. I sank to the ground, heart hammering. You're saying the reason you don't contact us is us. Yes, we do not hide from you. You hide from us. Every time we appear, you turn away. Because we're afraid. Because you prefer comfort. Truth is not a comfort, Aaron. It is a mirror. You asked why we remain silent. It is because your species punishes those who hold up mirrors. My throat tightened. Images rushed through my mind. Whistleblowers ruined, scientists mocked, prophets crucified. We kill the messengers, not the message. Then what do I do? Do not break the mirror this time. I stood slowly, dizzy. Kyle, no one will believe any of this. Then do not tell them, show them. In how you live. In what you create. In how you choose. The voice began to fade, soft but resolute. We do not need believers. We need rememberers. And then he was gone, completely. No echo, no hum, only silence. But it wasn't empty anymore. It was full, like the air itself was listening. I went back inside, sat at the table, and stared at the camera. I pressed record. My reflection stared back from the screen. "My name is Aaron Holt," I said quietly. "If you're seeing this, I need you to listen before you laugh. 3 days ago I met someone, not from here. And what he told me isn't about aliens. It's about us." I paused, words failing, then continued. "We always say we're waiting for them to show themselves. But what if they're waiting for us to stop pretending we don't see? What if open contact isn't a landing, it's an awakening?"
He said they don't contact us because we punish truth, because we turn every revelation into war, religion, or profit. Maybe he's right. My voice cracked a little. Maybe the real reason they stay silent is because we can't hear anything that doesn't flatter us. And if that's true, maybe silence is mercy. I stopped recording, staring at the blinking red light until it went off. The room felt still again, but not lonely. I looked out the window, and for a moment, just as the sun cleared the horizon, I saw something shimmer above the sand. A faint reflection shaped like a figure watching. It was gone in an instant, but it left warmth behind. Not fear, not sadness, purpose. I sat there for a long time, watching the light move across the floor, thinking about all the times I'd run from the world because it felt broken. Maybe it wasn't broken, maybe we were. And maybe the only way to fix it was to stop pretending we needed saving. By the second day after Kyle disappeared, I could no longer tell the difference between dreams and waking life. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw flashes of the desert overlaid with impossible images, floating cities made of light, beings walking in patterns that shaped constellations, waves of sound turning into color. When I opened them, I saw the same images faintly hovering behind the ordinary world, as if reality itself had gone translucent. I stopped eating. Sleep came in fragments. My phone had no signal anymore, even though it had worked the day before. The camera battery that Kyle had somehow recharged was dead again, and this time it refused to turn back on. But none of it scared me. Not anymore. Because underneath the chaos there was a strange calm, a sense that everything, every failure, every loss, every unanswered question was part of something immense and alive. I spent hours sitting outside the cabin, listening to the silence, trying to hear what Kyle said he heard. The world wasn't quiet. It was full of whispers. The wind through sand, insects beneath the earth, even the low hum of distant power lines, they all seemed connected, speaking the same language in different tones. Connection, Kyle had said. That is the beginning. I didn't fully understand until then. He hadn't been talking about telepathy or technology. He meant awareness, realizing that nothing is separate, that everything listens if you do. The longer I sat there, the more I felt it. The desert wasn't empty, it was aware. And I was part of it.
When night came, I lit a small fire, even though I didn't need the warmth. I just wanted to see the flames move. They reminded me of Cale's eyes, dark, endless, alive. The stars overhead looked closer than ever. I remembered what he said. We never left, we just stopped knocking. Maybe they were still there, right above us, invisible, not because they were far, but because we refused to see. Around midnight, I heard footsteps behind me. My heart jumped, but when I turned, there was no one. Only a faint ripple in the air where Kyle used to stand. I closed my eyes. "If you can hear me," I said softly. "I'm trying. I'm listening." The air trembled. And then I heard him, or maybe it was me. "You are doing more than listening. You are remembering." The voice wasn't outside or inside. It was everywhere, like the sound of the earth breathing. I let the words sink into me until they felt like my own thoughts. Then I asked, "Why me?" The answer came gently. "Because you asked the right question before you knew it existed." "What question?" "What if the silence is the answer?" I didn't understand at first, but as I stared at the sky, it hit me. We'd been waiting for a message from the stars, a sign, a revelation. But maybe the silence wasn't absence. Maybe it was communication in its purest form, a language that required us to stop shouting long enough to hear it. I felt something shift inside me, like a veil being lifted. The fire burned low. I lay on the ground, watching embers fade into the sand. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of anything, not failure, not death, not the unknown, because the unknown wasn't against us, it was part of us. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamed I was standing at the edge of a massive ocean of light. Figures moved beneath its surface, Kyle among them. He raised his hand and a ripple spread across the water, reaching my feet. "You understand now," he said without speaking. "That we were never gods or demons," I said. "Only mirrors. And the reason you don't contact us? Because contact is not given. It is remembered." The light swelled around me until I couldn't tell where he ended, and I began. I woke up at dawn with tears on my face. The fire was gone, and the air was perfectly still. For the first time since the crash, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anything. Kyle had been right all along. They never left. We just stopped seeing them. Maybe they exist in every silence, in every act of wonder, in every human who dares to look up and not just ask if we're alone, but why we feel that way in a universe that never stopped speaking. I packed my things that morning. The camera, useless as it was, went into the bag anyway. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay here. Isolation had shown me the truth, but it wasn't where truth was meant to live. Before I left, I looked once more at the patch of sand where Cale had stood. The faint pattern he left behind was gone, erased by the wind, but when I closed my eyes I could still see it. Circles within circles, connection within connection, everything spiraling toward a single point. Awareness. As I started walking toward the road, I heard one last whisper in my head, soft and certain. The silence will guide you. And for the first time, I believed it. I walked for hours before finding the main road. The desert stretched endlessly behind me, flat and golden under the morning sun, like a dream that had already begun to fade. Cars passed now and then, but I didn't wave any down. I didn't want to explain where I'd been or what I'd seen. I just wanted to move forward, one step at a time, until the sound of my footsteps replaced the last traces of that otherworldly hum. By noon, I reached a small town, a forgotten dot on the map, with cracked streets, a gas station, and a diner that looked older than time. When I walked in, people turned to stare. My clothes were caked in sand, my eyes red from sleepless nights. I must have looked like a ghost. I sat at the counter, ordered coffee, and for a while said nothing. The waitress poured me a cup and asked if I was okay. I almost told her everything about the crash, the light, Kyle, but stopped. Instead, I said, "I'm fine, just needed to wake up." She smiled politely and left. I stared into the coffee. The steam rose in lazy spirals, forming shapes that dissolved too quickly to name. I pulled out the camera and turned it on, knowing it wouldn't work. But the screen flickered to life. This time, an image appeared. Grainy, unstable, but there. It showed Cale standing where I'd left him, his figure outlined in light, the desert shimmering behind him like liquid glass. I blinked, and the image vanished, replaced by a single line of text across the display. "Do not look up. Look within." My hand trembled. I switched the camera off and put it away. Maybe it was a glitch. Or maybe it wasn't. Either way, I understood what it meant. Humanity keeps waiting for the sky to open, for some miracle to descend and rewrite our story. But Cale had been right. The sky had always been open. We were the ones who closed our eyes. When I left the diner, the world looked sharper. Not brighter, not new, just more real. Every sound, every colour, every movement hummed with a quiet intelligence, as if everything around me was aware of itself and me at once. A dog barked in the distance, a child laughed, wind chimes clinked softly on a porch. All of it part of the same conversation. I found a motel at the edge of town and rented a room for the night. It was small, quiet, and smelled faintly of dust and bleach. I sat by the window watching the sunset paint the sky in molten red. I thought about everything Cale had said, about connection, silence, and how truth isn't something given but something remembered. I realized then that his message wasn't meant just for me. It was meant for anyone willing to stop running from themselves long enough to listen. And that's when I decided to write. Not an article, not an expose, something simpler. A story. I opened my laptop and began typing, letting the words flow like they belonged to someone else. I hid an alien for 3 days, and he told me the real reason they don't contact us. It sounded insane, but truth often does at first. I wrote through the night, every word guided by something deeper than thought. The story wasn't about Cale, it was about us, our fear, our arrogance, our longing to be found by something we've never stopped running from. By morning, I had 20 pages. I posted it anonymously online and closed the laptop. I didn't expect anyone to believe it. But within hours, it spread. Forums, blogs, podcasts, everyone was talking about it. Some called it fiction, others called it revelation. Most just argued. But hidden among the noise were messages that sounded like echoes of understanding. People writing things like, "I saw them too," or "The silence finally makes sense." For the first time in years, the world felt alive again, not because it had changed, but because people were starting to question why it hadn't. Days passed. I left the motel and began traveling, speaking to anyone who would listen, not preaching, just sharing. Some laughed, some listened, a few cried. Every reaction mattered, because every reaction meant the silence was breaking, even if just a little. Sometimes at night, when I was alone, I'd hear that faint hum again. Sometimes in my dreams, Kyle would appear, not as a being of light, but as something familiar, something human. In one dream, he said, "We are not above you, we are you, without the walls." I asked him if humanity would ever cross that edge, if we'd ever remember what we are. He smiled, the same calm, impossible smile. "You already are," he said. "Every time one of you chooses to see, the contact begins." I woke up with tears in my eyes and laughter on my lips because I finally understood what he meant. Contact wasn't an event. It was a state of awareness. It didn't require ships or technology, only honesty, the courage to stop pretending the universe is something separate from us. That morning, I looked at the sky, clear and endless, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. Maybe Cale was still out there. Maybe he never left. Maybe he was watching, waiting, just like he said. But it didn't matter anymore, because now, when I listen to the silence, I hear what he meant all along. Truth doesn't arrive. It awakens, and when it does, it doesn't sound like thunder or light. It sounds like breath, like the soft hum of a world remembering itself.